All right, we're going to get started. Welcome, everyone. I do apologize for the delay. So, we're calling the meeting to order. We're going to go ahead and do the Pledge of Allegiance. If we can just stand. Ready? Begin. I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands. 1.3 adoption of the agenda. Can I get a motion? Thank you. Moved by Ms. Medina, second by Mr. Santos. And then 2.0 board workshop presentation. I'll go ahead and pass it over to Mr. Arellano.
Thank you, President Ceballos. First of all, welcome to everybody. I love that our employees said, there's nothing that we would rather be than be at a workshop this afternoon after a long day. So I appreciate everybody's here today. I want to commend the board for calling this workshop and for your willingness to continue to learn and grow as a board so that you can make informed decisions and then provide direction and allocate resources to continue to support our SBCUSD Shines 2030 multi-year vision. And with your willingness to learn, I know we've endured a lot of great news over the years, but the most recent good news based on the stewardship that you've had of this district is just recently we found out we had 4 California Distinguished Schools identified just this week. Last year we had 2 elementary schools that earned Distinguished School. We had our Model Continuation High School designation. And then just this afternoon, I was notified by the California Department of Ed that Pacific High School is one of 40 high schools in the state that were identified as earning the Exemplary Dual Enrollment Award. So board, want to thank you for your stewardship because you are making a difference and you are changing the trajectory of lives in our community, so thank you for that. Today, you have asked for some information to continue your learning on 2 important items that we have been working on as a district, even predating my arrival here. So I want to thank the district and everyone that you'll hear from today. You've asked for a report on where we are with our focus on grading practices. And you've also asked us to hear a little bit about how we are creating a culture, a college-going culture, and what does that look like in terms of a counseling calendar and activities to do with kids to prepare for that. So we have 2 items today. Basically, we have a little less than 2 hours, so I'm going to be the timekeeper. With your permission, we'll start with the grading practices discussion. I'll kind of watch the clock. At the 45-minute mark, I'll wink at you guys, ojitos, and that'll be the key of maybe it's time to transition so that we give both topics equal time. Is that fair? Okay, so I'm going to turn it over to Mrs. Applegate, and we will get started.
So good afternoon, board, and thank you so much for asking for this topic. It was about 7 years ago that the prior board had actually expressed interest and really wanted us to look at evidence-based grading because we realized that that's what's right for kids and we wanted to be better about how we do grading. And I'm very proud of Dr. Venkatesan, and as you can see, our whole secondary team is here behind her. And the work that this team has done is just unbelievable. We had a pretty abrupt interruption with COVID. You'll hear a little bit about the timeline of grading and where we are. And we're very proud of the work that's been done. We mainly have focused on the high schools, and we plan to obviously, of course, expand to middle schools. So without further ado, I'll turn it over to the team and just tell you again how proud I am of them because I know there's a lot of hard work involved, a lot of hard work at the school sites as well. And our teachers have been fabulous. So we're hoping to expand as much as we can. So Dr. Venkatesan.
Thank you. And good afternoon, Board President Ceballos, Mr. Arellano, board members and cabinet members that are here. I'm very excited to bring this grading practices work, and it is actually a part of a comprehensive way we look at student improvement. And I also want to thank all the my incredible team that is here today, and these 2 are my rock stars who guide me with all this grading practices work. But without their support and dedication, we wouldn't be moving forward with the work. So it takes a village, and you see that these are the ones that really, the boots on the ground, so to speak. So with that said, next slide. High expectations in our Shines document. It is about getting our students college ready, career ready, future ready. But readiness doesn't happen by accident. It happens through systems and beliefs. And grading is one of the most powerful systems we influence. And I do want to share, without my boss's support, Mrs. Applegate, that is here, we wouldn't have been where we are today with this work. She has been a relentless, warrior in this work, I should say, to say, what resources do you need, just like how you all do. We're taking a closer look at grading because inconsistencies can unintentionally create disparities and barriers for students. As a district, we have an opportunity to ensure that our practices are coherent, defensible, and centered on student achievement. This evening, I'm going to walk you through why grading practices is important. What are the policy and legal guardrails under which we have to work? And what are the mindset and the cultural shifts that we have to look for to ensure this consistency? And how do we intervene with the students as part of that comprehensive system? And how do we educate and build capacity among our teachers and other educators? And finally, how do we build that sustainability in the system, especially with administrators and beyond? So the first section is going to be about why and what grades actually influence. This highlights a very critical mindset shift. Grading is not the end, it's the means. Grades are often viewed as the final outcomes, but they are powerful levers that drive real student results. When we ensure our grading practices are consistent and fair, we directly influence major indicators of success, like GPA and graduation rates, A through G eligibility for college access, overall college going rate. Most importantly, effective grading builds the confidence of a student. Aligning our grading with academic mastery, we help students walk out of the door truly ready for college and career. And this slide shows you when the DNF rates drop, when there is a decline in DNF, grad rate increases. And as you can see, there has been a consistent drop from a 28.4 to 24.3% in our Ds and Fs. You also see that the high school A through G completion rates are growing as Ds and F rates are declining. A through G showed the strongest growth this year. It's a 8+ percentage points, and we expect that continued momentum. We are shifting the focus from simply graduating the kids to college and career readiness. Further into this presentation, I will discuss how we are approaching grading practices again as a comprehensive system overhaul. So the whole idea of looking at grading practices is one of the levers that we pull. There's a lot of systems that actually work together in order to produce this jump in student achievement. Before we go any further, I want to update the board with the grading practices journey. We have been moving away from isolated training towards a system-wide alignment. The key shift over time has been with small cohorts to now district-wide consultation with Dr. Reeves, bringing teachers along for meetings. Now we are moving to the embedded site level work and now towards a full system alignment. During the pandemic, as Mrs. Applegate was mentioning, instruction shifted to a different modality. So the needs and the urgencies were very different. Grading practices were not at the forefront at that time because there was also hold harmless practices that were implemented. However, we really picked up the work again in 2022, and now we are no longer in an experimental mode. We are institutionalizing this work across the district. So on the previous slide, we reviewed the overall journey of our grading practices, this slide highlights some of the key activities that were done during this time in order to support this work. The work began, as I mentioned, with educator cohorts and expanded to include pushing into MOUs at school sites and talking about grading practices. Especially, we were working on the mindset and the culture first. District level professional learning, technical support, and school-based collaboration. Our CLC, Creative Leadership Solution coaches, they literally pushed into every single high school site, and they worked with different PLC teams as well as the administrators in order to do implementation of this grading work. Through this approach, we were able to reach 100% of our high schools and begin institutionalizing more aligned grading practices across the district. So we now move on to section 2, which is the legal guardrails and our board policy. As we developed to continue this systemic approach to grading. It was very critical that we kept two of these in mind throughout the process of this work. Our official board policy, as well as the foundational requirement of the Ed Code. Our work was designed to operate within these legal requirements from the very start. So you have a copy of these policies in the binder for your review. One of the main components of the Ed Code is establishing the fundamental authority of the classroom teacher to determine students' grade, which can only be legally challenged by the governing board or superintendent in case of a clerical error or fraud. Furthermore, the code allows district to adopt regulations for assigning a failing grade due to excessive unexcused absences. And it mandates that district must have regulations in place to ensure a written report or conference with a parent when a student is in the danger of failing a course. So in our district, you can see poor work notices that is sent out every 6 weeks. And then there were teachers also send notifications via ARIES for all the DNF students and a 10-week mark for A through F quarter grades. That's how we satisfied that area of the policy. There are 2 key board policies, 5121 and 6011, that govern our grading policies alongside the Ed Code. The purpose of reviewing these is to provide context on our current guardrails so you can consider how our new data and our new steps may inform future policy revisions. We transitioned to a unified grading system using ARIES, our student information system, which was rolled out in 2009. The policy clarifies that the GPA calculation methodology is board approved, ensuring consistency and fairness across schools. You have a copy of our board policy in your binder exhibit 2B and 2C. Section 3, mindset and culture. Policy alone does not change practice, culture does. So the first 1 or 2 years, we have been heavily investing in this mindset shift. Real improvement does not begin with programs. It begins with belief. A meaningful shift happens when we anchor our decisions around one central question: what is best for our students? A growth mindset means recognizing that performance is not fixed and that students can improve with right supports. When students experience small successes, passing a class, completing A through G, staying on track to graduate, their confidence grows, and that confidence creates a momentum for their further success. For educators, this mindset develops with 3 things present: clear signals that demonstrate change is real, and also on how we respond to the failure and how we monitor progress. Strong structures that embed support not as a standalone into schedules, into the PLC conversations, into the intervention systems we are doing, and grading practices work. So the grading practices will never work in isolation unless it is couched as part of a comprehensive system overhaul. Intentional celebration of progress, such as improved graduation rates, declining Ds and Fs, and stronger A through G completion. When belief in students is reinforced with these signals, structures, and celebrations, improved students' outcomes follow. An additional report supporting this work is included in your Exhibit 3. Section 4 is our instructional systems. Over the past several years, much of our work around grading practices has been focused at the high school level, as Mrs. Applegate mentioned. What you will see in the next few slides is how those grading practices, combined with the intervention systems we have put in place, are beginning to produce measurable results for students. At the same time, following COVID, our middle schools focused heavily on building strong MTSS systems and student support structures. Those frameworks are now well established. When we are embarking on now is bringing grading practices into the middle school system so that grades now accurately reflect student learning and help us identify the gaps earlier. If there is no consistency in grading, we may not be able to identify the right learning gap. So when we intervene with our systems, probably we are intervening not in the correct gap, for the correct gap. So it is very important now that we have taken care and there is some consistency in the high school, we want to go back and start looking at the middle school right now in order to now couch this MTSS work along with our grading practices work. So this slide looks at the overall grade distribution in our 4 core areas. What we are seeing over 3 years is movement. We are not seeing grade inflation. We are seeing growth in A and B performance, declines in DNF rates. That's hundreds of students no longer sitting in course failure territory. But I also want to be transparent. Nearly 1 in 4 course grades are still a D or F. So we celebrate progress, but we maintain the urgency. Progress does not eliminate responsibility. You celebrate progress, but it does not eliminate responsibility. We are not sitting back. Thank you. When we break this down by subject, we see something important. Math remains our highest DNF area, though it has improved significantly. That tells us 2 things. System level supports are working, but content-specific strategies still matter. We need to continue to have that extra push in mathematics. Improvement is not isolated in one department. This is a system-wide movement. This slide shows a 3-year data comparison. This is where the equity conversation becomes real. Overall, the system is improving. The green arrows across the board show declines in DF rates in most areas, which is something we should recognize and celebrate. We have seen some important successes. For example, English learner DNF rates dropped by 5.2%, which represents meaningful progress. At the same time, we know that the work is not finished. Even with improvement, some of these rates remain too high. and we need to continue pushing them down. This is where we require a comprehensive approach to this issue, which goes beyond grading practices.
Quick question, let me interrupt
Sure.
you real quick. That number on the bottom, is that the total or is it the percentage of the green? What does it represent?
It's a 3-year difference between what happened to the first year and what has happened to the third year. It's the difference in the 3 years.
No, the bottom.
That's the number of students in that, yeah.
Okay. So if I wanted
Correct.
to do the math, I would do 15% of 121, for example, to see how many students. So for example, on the first one, all students,
Uh-huh.
you have 18,603. If I wanted to do the calculation of how many students are
Yes.
failing, I would do
Yes.
24. I would multiply
Yes.
that.
So how monitoring looks like in high school. This slide is critical. High school students have 7 periods, A through G sequences, CTE pathways, dual enrollment, AP, IB, competing priorities for intervention. So every period carries consequence. We do have support classes, especially in 9th grade, where there is some schedule flexibility. But in upper grades, we must be very strategic. Too many support classes can unintentionally remove A through G access. So at high school, intervention focuses on strengthening Tier 1 instruction, monitoring credits closely, and protecting their trajectory. So here is how it works. We combine Unified Insights, which is a student data analytics system, California College Guidance Initiative, which is our CCGI platform, and ARIES to create a full picture of every senior's progress towards college readiness. First, I would request the board members to look at the, because our slides are moving differently. First, we look at Unified Insights to identify any 12th grade student earning a D, F, or incomplete in the A through G course. This is not waiting until May. This is identifying at the beginning of the semester. Once identified, we don't stop. We cross-reference the CCGI platform. We look at A through G progress, college readiness indicators, and what is their status on that. This allows us to see not just the grades, but missed opportunity. Finally, we create a school-by-school, student-by-student monitoring list where we look even closer. We verify current enrollment and transcripts in ARIES. We analyze A through G gaps found in CCGI. We determine whether credit recovery, schedule adjustments, or immediate academic intervention is needed. This is a snapshot of a school of every student missing 5 to 10 credits because DNFs are identified. Now we have become highly sophisticated in this system. This is why A through G went up by 8 percentage points. You know how we say, if we don't know how we made the gain, then it's a fluke. But we know how we made the gain. So we can continue to keep that trend. So this is not a passive reporting anymore. This is active case management. This is where I want to provide kudos to our counseling department. Now what they are doing, and they're going to talk about that, now instead of this work sitting at the district office, they are training the counselors at their school sites on how to do this work. So we want to make sure that everybody who is engaged, all the students, mainly the counselors are the ones that are engaged with the students, and they are now feverishly training the counselors that they can do this student by student work there. So this is this year's data as of February 2026. In February, we have identified 50.3% of seniors are on track for college readiness. Through our monitoring system, we flagged 537 seniors who currently have a D or a F in one or two subject areas. If we can provide targeted intervention for them, there is a potential for them to go up to 69%. This is the power of monitoring. For example, Arroyo Valley High School, 72 seniors were identified who were missing one or two subject areas. By providing credit recovery, Arroyo Valley High School has the potential to go from a 53% A through G rate to a 66.7% on track rate. We recognize that there may be special considerations on why students may not have the ability to make up these credits. But without monitoring or without even identification of these numbers, these students can quietly graduate without A through G eligibility. Or worse, could lose graduation credits. So we don't stop at identification. The higher the number of students who change these Ds and Fs and recover credit, the higher our A through G is going to be from our baseline of 53% as it stands currently. So let's say, for example, if all 537 students recover credits, then we are going to be at a 69% for the district overall. But I want to couch this with, when you go in, this is the number we are pulling from the district, right? There is a story behind every one of this. That is where we go meet with the team and find out how many of these students can we push in order to get this A through G and in order to cross that finish line. My team, and we work very closely with Swiss. Yes, that is why when I showed you that we pull the unified system, we literally go transcript by transcript by transcript. It's like 3,000 students. So we are partnering in this work, and we are making sure that there is not a single, because there is urgency in seniors, right? If they have shown progress that they can make up this much of A through G, that 5 or 10 credits for them shouldn't matter. So we have to see what is stopping them from getting that 5-10 credits. We won't know the full story if we don't take the data, go sit with the school, sit with the counselors, and say, what is going on with these students? Let's pull the transcript and see why they are missing out these 5-10 credits. So we uncovered a lot of stories by that, but that also makes us understand some of the challenges the schools are facing is real. How can we support them? How can we support the counselors? How can we support the admin in making sure?
Yeah, so let me pause. You want to speak into it?
It's exciting for me too.
No, this is definitely exciting. Just a historical aspect. When I first joined the board back in 2013, our percentage points were in the tens.
Yes.
In the A through G. And I remember saying to all, because back then I would do parent engagement with COPE, and I would, present, and I asked parents, how many of you want your children to go to college? Everyone raised their hand. And I understand now, not all students want to go to college, but at least we provide the opportunity for them to decide for themselves versus the system deciding for them. And then the parents all raise their hand, and just realizing back then, only 17 out of 100, so just realizing would meet the A through G requirements back then. And that was a high percentage point compared to you looked at the demographics was actually a lot less. So where we're at now is amazing to
Yeah.
me. And it just shows the amount of work that our district was willing, and the team, of course, was willing to put into making sure that we were, we were pushing for what's needed to be pushed. And this is going to definitely be a game changer if we do realize, or when we do realize, of getting to that 69%. But that is an average. But if you look at high schools, it's a lot higher than that.
Yes,
So it's-
individually, correct.
Yes.
That's what, because continuation schools are factored into it. And again, even though we pursue A through G with continuation schools, the students that go into continuation schools have a large credit, gap. That is why they go to continuation schools. But then when our bottom line, the denominator is calculated on our total cohort. So naturally, even if, let's say all the comprehensive schools hit 70%, right?
Mhm.
Our average may still not be 70% because the continuation school numbers are factored into it.
Mhm. Yes.
So that means every school has to push above that category in order for us to meet that.
Yes.
But schools have been working incredibly hard in terms of looking at, literally, we are leaving no stones unturned.
Yes, and I'm glad that you're doing, and the Ds and Fs does make a huge impact.
Yes.
Because I remember there were students that were doing really well in the state tests, but their grades were not reflecting it, and they were failing.
So
And
before we used to come and report the Ds and Fs, but then we never had this level of sophisticated data that was available to us. And that too, in a minute, overnight, we have data availability. So we watch this data very carefully. And then we look at what is going on at the school site. We are able to access transcripts. Before, what will we do? We provide intervention. Now we go beyond that. No, this is not going to help. We need different treatment for different diagnosis. So we are able to get that sophisticated into our system now. That's why you see grading is just a means, but if we don't use the data that is available from that and intervene, then we are not going to produce results. We just learned the game now.
Well,
on
thank
how
you
to
so much.
navigate
Thank you
this.
to everyone that was part of this as well. Thank you.
Yeah.
Just a few questions on this particular slide. This is only looking at 12th graders, you said, right, for each of
Correct.
the high schools?
Correct.
When you talk about interventions or support that you provide to the school sites, and if you're going to talk about it, I'll wait, but I'm curious to see a little bit more what that looks like specifically.
The next slides are going to
Perfect.
talk
I'm
more a
getting
little bit
ahead
about
of
how
myself
those.
here. Thank you.
So, and you have samples of high schools where how the 12th grade students are monitored at every school. There is a sample of that. So, Ms. Ceballos, the question that you asked about how we are doing it, it is applied in high school too, using the MTSS framework, how we do this intervention system. But I'm going to talk, because of the lack of time, I'm going to talk about it from the middle school point of view. So, as mentioned, grading practices at the middle school are still in the early stages of development. However, again, thanks to the board for providing us with the MTSS TOSA at each site. Our middle schools now have strong systems in place to monitor student progress and coordinate interventions. As we begin to expand grading practices into middle schools, this will create consistency across school sites on how learning is measured. So when the learning is accurately measured, it will also strengthen the MTSS system by helping us identify the learning gaps correctly. So the interventions that we put in place will work. Right now, we are still looking at oh, we are providing this intervention. Why is that it is not producing the desired result? Probably our diagnosis is not accurate. That's because there is so much inconsistency across the system. We are trying to narrow that down. That's where this MTSS framework and the TOSAs have been really helping us. So this slide shows how we monitor our systems. We regularly review key data such as grades, attendance, and assessment results to identify students who may be at risk. Assessments like NWEA and SBAT provide important system-level insight. And when combined with classroom evidence and grades, they give us a clearer picture of student progress. Our MTSS framework provides the structure for responding to that information, and our TOSAs work with schools and teachers to review the data, identify students who may need support, and strengthen how those supports are implemented. The goal is to move from data to action so that we can support students earlier and help them keep them on track for success beyond middle school. So what that monitoring looks like. TOSAs run reports and compile spreadsheets for all students to identify. So you see the spreadsheet there. So they regularly review DNF trends. Next, we examine NWEA and SBAC data alongside grades and attendance to determine the specific need. For example, a student flagged for 2Ds may also show below benchmark NWEA scores and attendance concerns, pointing to a learning gap. At that point, intervention is targeted, not generic, and aligned to the actual need. That is how the work truly becomes student-centered. And we also have very good curriculum materials that allow we can put 30 students in the same classroom, but each one can be working towards what is that learning gap that they are missing. So we can individualize instruction like that. So the samples of how we monitor is also in your binder. So now once we monitor, what do we do with that? Across our middle school, intervention varies by site. Through learning centers, we have support classes, and in some cases, double-blocked courses. We have become strong at identifying students who need support. Our monitoring systems are working. Where we are still growing is in sophistication and consistency in implementation of such supports. While we are good at identifying need, we do not yet have a uniform system that ensures implementation looks consistent for every student at every site. Our next step is building greater coherence so that identification consistently leads to effective intervention for all students. So up to this point, we have examined what the data is telling us. This shifts to building educator capacity to strengthen grading accuracy and consistency while maintaining their professional autonomy. This is not, go ahead.
I'm sorry, can I just bring you back really quickly?
Sure.
So the monitoring phase that you just covered, or the moving from monitoring to implementation, you have 3 different models here: learning center, support classes, and double block courses. So what you're saying, if I'm understanding correctly, is that these 3 are the models that are used, but it varies which model is used at which school?
Correct.
Okay.
And some schools may have all 3 models available.
Got it. And you said that the next phase or goal is to implement consistency kind of across.
Correct.
Do you have data for the schools that are utilizing one versus the other? You know, like those that are utilizing learning centers, and maybe that's all they're utilizing.
So the way, the very first pilot that we have done is, again, it is our superintendent's initiative on reading. So we maintain, one of the things that we are trying to do is to bring all the teachers that were teaching that reading as well as the principals together and looked at what is the kind of intervention that they want to do. So we had a sampling of students that performed at a certain band. So now we have done the diagnosis and we are producing the intervention with the same type of curriculum, same type of testing. So now we are looking at the data. So I can definitely bring you the data. We see if there is a consistency that is applied across school sites, there is a trend, our students are performing better and better. So that is one of the things. So to answer your question, we haven't still done whether this is better than that or that is better than that, because for research, they all have some benefits. But we haven't tested that, we haven't looked at the data specifically with our district. Based on the master schedule and based on how the school's availability of the teachers and all that worked, each one kind of navigated to a certain system of supporting students. The bottom line was all the students have to be supported. But how we did it was different. So now it's bringing all of them together. The reading is the only one that runs as a common thread in the middle school. And we see growth. We are applying the same thing. We diagnosed with the same test. We applied the same curriculum as an intervention. Now we made sure that teachers are all having that same level of credential and qualification. Now we are testing the data. We see that the kids are accelerating in their reading.
And if I may very quickly, Dr. Venkatesan, the reason that we don't have one consistent model across is a learning center requires a room, usually. It requires a full room. Personnel, school sites may not have that. So they have to really adjust to whatever it is they have personnel-wise, even the facilities. So the only thing that was consistent, as Dr. Venkatesan said, was the reading support teacher that all middle schools have, and it's all the same curriculum.
Thank you. And so the goal is to get to that place of strengthening consistency and
Yes.
coherence. What are we saying that what will it take to get there? Where are we kind of in?
I think what we need to really do is maybe not necessarily the model, but the results. So some have double block courses that may be working very well for that particular school. Others may have a learning center and that might be working perfectly for them. So what we are doing is getting data on all the different types of intervention. And the goal ultimately is student success no matter what the model is. So I can't say necessarily that learning center might work for every single middle school and it might be the same model. I think we're looking for consistency in the increase in student achievement, first and foremost.
I also have a comment I'd like you to note. I think that's great. You have so many monitoring systems and ideas, and that are all going on. This makes you feel really good. And I just can't help but wonder now: are the students themselves, are they a part of like self-monitoring too? I was going to ask them that, and also if maybe they could see a slide production like this, so they could see where they are on it and to see where they want to go.
You asked a good question. I will send you a sample. Many of the schools have started, in Common Core, student accountability is one of the student ownership is
Yeah,
one of the main
yeah.
area. So in fact, she wanted to include that. I said,
And what do
I'm the
other
one-
districts do for this? You know?
oh, we did include that. So you can see, so students self-check.
Okay.
So they do have, we have put it at, thank you.
Yeah, so we get them engaged in
Yes.
wanting this to win also, and to see themselves where they are now, where they're going to get, and where they will be.
We are talking, especially in our cluster meetings, we are really talking about students knowing
Mhm.
what their grades are,
Yeah.
why
Their goals. Yeah.
why it is that you can't even if it's a middle school, why you can't have D's and F's. because there is a repercussion when you continue, when you say D is okay and you go to high school, oh my God, now I failed my course. Why am I going to repeat it again? All that should not be. So we are trying, that's one of the reasons as you go through, we have some non-negotiables we have developed at the middle school level. Principals all got together to develop that. So these are the questions that what you're asking, we are trying to address at the middle school level.
Let me just add one, just to reassure the board. We do look at systems and we decide whether they are working or not. So one example of a change of direction, a pivot, was last year when we recognized we had students at the middle school who could not read. Not that they were behind in reading, they could not read. But the system had said for years what we do with those students is we pull them out and we have them work, sometimes with an instructional aid or another teacher that may not be qualified or doesn't have the learning to actually teach them how to read like we would at the elementary level. So we pivoted, and this year we hired, this is what we're talking about, we hired teachers that are reading specialists that are ordinarily found at the elementary level. We have them at the middle school level in a learning center model where now teachers are actually teaching the kids how to read. Why was that important? Because in the old model, those same kids were never learning how to read because they were never being taught the systems of reading. So that is one example of how we've seen a system is not working, and we've pivoted into something, and this is year one. So obviously we'll look at it over a 2-year trend and decide, is that what we're going to stick with or not? We believe it will be, but I want you to know, board, that sometimes we look at something and say it's not working, and we pivot again. Correct.
Correct.
Yeah.
So again, what I do want to reassure the board is we have systems. Every school is offering some sort of intervention. The consistency that we have seen and developed at high school, because high school there was more urgency in terms of making sure that A through G's, they have to graduate, because after that, there's no point. Like, once they're 12th grade, that's the time they are with us. We want to make sure that they are able to go into the world with a diploma, with A through G completion. So we focused on that A through G while we were building this MTSS systems and model. Now it is very easy. The second part of the work is going to be much easier to build because we already have this reading model established and the data is saying that it is working. Now we are going to look at these 3 different models. What would be the right place to apply these models where it is producing results? So I don't want to say it is rosy yet. I want to be very transparent and say that is the area we are working to have that consistency. So the next one is how are we building this professional capacity for our educators? These are some examples that you see of learning-focused grading practices that educators are exploring. They are not mandates. They are tools aligned to clarity, accuracy, and mastery. You will see practices such as rubric-based scoring, reassessment structures, minimum grading to reduce mathematical distortion, replacing early scores with demonstrated mastery, and structured feedback before final grades. Currently, 32% of our secondary teachers are implementing one or more of these practices. That reflects a growing momentum and not enforcement. So this work is supported through our grading practices professional learning series. So currently, 30 secondary educators are currently participating in the 25-26 cohort. This series is offered in partnership with UC Riverside, a 4-unit university course. The focus is improving grading accuracy and clarity, aligning grade books to standards, and demonstrated mastery to support graduation and A through G success. Flyers for these workshops are in your binder. and also the full session descriptions on what is being offered. And Jen leads that work in our district. So Aries Grade Book Support. How do we translate the philosophy of grading practices into operational consistency? In addition to professional learning, we provide implementation support. Teachers can attend monthly virtual office hours where they share their Aries gradebooks live for personalized review and coaching. During these sessions, we examine categories, weights, scales, and grade calculations to reduce grade distortion while maintaining alignment with learning targets. Grade distortion occurs when a student's final grade reflects things other than what the student has actually learned, or when grade calculations create mathematical inaccuracies that misrepresent a student's level of understanding. So the last section is sustainability. This is not a short-term initiative. This is institutional design. Mindset, monitoring, professional learning, and systems. So that builds sustainability. Let's take a moment to reconnect to the objectives that framed today's workshop. Objectives 1, 2, 3 focused on the why behind grading practices, the legal guardrails through EdCode and board policy, and the mindset needed for this work. I want to bring our remaining objectives all together visually. Objectives 4, 5, and 6 are all around implementation. Instructional systems, professional learning and capacity, sustainability, and next steps. They are not isolated sections of this workshop. They are directly connected to 3 groups: students, teachers, and administrators. In Objective 4, we discussed instructional systems to support students. When we monitor progress and create feedback loops, students are not surprised, they are supported. In Objective 5, we discussed professional learning and capacity support that supports teachers. When we build educator capacity and create collaboration around grading practices, consistency improves. In Objective 6, sustainability and next steps, it supports administrators. When leaders define non-negotiables and ensure consistency, systems hold. I want to speak briefly about the role of our administrators in building sustainability across our system. If we are a serious institution of academics, it must be anchored in strong leadership at the school level. Our middle school and high school principals have worked collaboratively to establish district-wide expectations, clear non-negotiables that will be implemented at every site. Our middle school principals identified a set of non-negotiables that support consistent grading practices and early intervention. The key highlights are shown in this slide, but you will see the full details of their work in the handout that you received. In the same way, our high school principals worked collaboratively to define their own set of non-negotiables focused on protecting A through G access, monitoring student progress, and ensuring consistency across campuses. Again, a copy of that is in your binder. Both teams work together with the same goal in mind: building coherence across our district systems so that students experience clear expectations and consistent support from middle school through high school. Throughout this presentation, we have explored how our system supports students through monitoring and intervention, support teachers through professional learning and collaboration around grading practices, and the support to the administrators. While instructional practices and systems operate at the classroom and district leadership level, board policy provides the broader framework that can help support or clarify those efforts. To provide context to that conversation, we looked at how other California districts have approached grading policies within the guardrails of EdCode. The examples on the next slide or simply intended to illustrate some of the approaches districts have taken when considering how grading practices, including traditional GPA measures and standard aligned practices such as rubric-based grading, can coexist within policy framework. This is not presented as a recommendation, but rather as a background information to support future decision. If the board ever chooses to explore whether the current policy language fully reflects the grading practices the district is working to implement. And here are a few examples how other California districts have addressed grading through board policies and administrative regulations. The literature and policy samples are in your binder, Exhibit 6C. They provide additional context and show the range of approaches districts are using within the guardrails. So this slide highlights examples of actions governing boards may take within the legal guardrails of California Ed Code. Boards can clarify the purpose of grades, ensure that academic achievement is evaluated separately from behavioral factors, and adopt administrative regulations that establish clear grading frameworks and processes. A key consideration is ensuring that academic grades reflect student mastery of state standards and course learning targets, meaning grades are based on academic work and demonstrated understanding of the content. Elements that are not direct measures of learning, such as behavior, participation, or attendance, can be addressed through other systems and should not distort the academic grade. Boards may also consider ensuring that grade calculations are mathematically accurate and that attendance expectations, such as unexcused absences affecting grades, are addressed through an attendance policy rather than a grading policy. So in your binder, Exhibit 7, we will find a research article titled Learning from Failures, Lessons from Unsuccessful Grading Reform Initiatives, which highlights the importance of thoughtful implementation when making changes to the grading practices. So that concludes my presentation, and I'm happy to take more questions.
Dr. Venkatesan, before you go on, can I clarify something? On slide 27, we have that there were 30 secondary educators in this cohort. Can you tell us, I think it was like over 200 maybe, or closer to
Yes,
that
so
have actually participated?
I did capture that in that previous slide. So slide number, it's not just 32, this is this year. They're participating in the whole series of courses. In slide number, this 8, you have how many teachers have so far participated? Yeah, it's in that one of the boxes.
We have a few minutes if there's additional questions, and then we'll transition. So please don't feel like you can't ask a question.
Thank you so much. I'll pass it over.
Slide 8.
So I think one of the reasons why it was a huge concern, and I'm glad you pointed out that at the end of the day, the grading practices come from the teachers, the educators, the ones in the classroom. I know this was a huge learning curve for myself back then when we were trying to figure out, well, it's just simple. We can, let's bring this forward. But it does come back towards, the teachers have to make the decision. They have the full discretion. And one of the things that we were looking at, and you mentioned it on slide 26, is grading for learning, not compliance. Like for instance, incomplete instead of 0. Minimum grading, 50% floor with guardrails. I mean, those are all important because when you look at even the grading, A is 90, 100, B is 80, 89. There's like 10 percentage points or 9 percentage points. But when you look at F's, it's 59 percentage points. So it's like once you get a 0, it is so hard to climb out of that. And I think that's what I was saying. Well, it's so obvious. People will understand that this makes sense. But I guess, and it was, I remember the first meetings that we had with the grading policy, there was pushback, a lot of pushback in the beginning. Some students need to learn their consequences. This is what happens. I'm not going to change the grade because of it or the way they were grading. But I do want, and I know it's not here, but I would like to look at a policy change pertaining to similar to what San Diego. It seems right that at least areas that we can control is not in the non-academic portion of it. So if we can look at that, but I'm hoping that there is a way where, it's like that 59 percentage points is a huge difference. So I'm trying to grasp why is it not sinking in across the board 100%. So but I do appreciate you looking at ways that how we can go around it.
I do see opportunities for us to, make some changes because the grading policy has not been looked at for many years. But we have started adopting new innovative ideas with grading. So we can add something to the policy, especially there are some areas in the policy that addresses unexcused absences. And I know PYD addresses that in very many different ways. We have our attendance policy, which is fully enforced. So the thing is that should not be part of a grading policy. So we have to look at making sure, and again, this has to be a collaborative effort with the SBTA, and that's one of the reasons we move slow but consistent.
Well, let me jump in there real quick. So, Ms. Medina, we have set an internal goal, a short-term goal, of trying to get to a 70% A through G mark in our district. So we do have a short-term goal. But in answer to your response, we will search that policy. I will bring it forth and share it with the Board of Education. So if there's something that you like in language and it's something that you want to entertain and give board direction, we will get that for you so that you guys can know the content of that policy. You can identify which specific areas you want and give us direction if you so wish. So appreciate that.
All
We
right,
have a copy in your,
Yes, I saw that. Thank you. That's why I got it.
given that we know that, attendance is a direct correlation to grades and efforts, and my first thought is I always want to send CPS to find out what's going on at home, if they have excesses, and, is it issues that the student is having? Is it the parents? Is it a family thing? We have so many resources, but parents don't ask. I read on Nextdoor, on my Nextdoor app, how many parents say, I have 3 kids, they all go to school, I need help, can somebody help me? And my first thought is like, why didn't they go to their school? And it's something that we take for granted in our school district. We're almost closeted, if you will. But I hear stories of other school districts that it seems like, I'm sure it's not true, but it's just getting that word out. And I just don't understand why we can't just get that across. It should just be commonality, like you're going to get a school lunch, and I don't know. So when we have those serious absentee numbers, that totally hurts. Are we doing everything we can to find out? I know my kids, if they didn't have clean socks, they didn't want to go to school, and I would let them stay. I did. I felt guilty. It was my fault, so I just wonder if we can do more for those children. That's all.
Mr. Santos, did you have anything you wanted to add, or we don't have our lights, so I want to check.
No,
Thank you.
I've been a teacher. No, I really don't. It's just, I think one of the challenges that I've seen as a father and someone who happens to be around the schools a lot, is sometimes, especially senior year, kids just want to go home early. Instead of having 7 classes, they want to have 4 classes, and then convincing the parents that, hey, if they take these extra couple classes, they'll be A through G. So I think that is also some of the challenges that they're facing. Also, sometimes students end up being TAing for 2 or 3 classes. So in other words, they're there for 7 periods, but not taking. So hopefully we're encouraging the principals and the counselors that, hey, if they have classes to make up, they're making up the classes. I'm assuming those are some of the things that we are currently doing.
So when you look at what the non-negotiables are, the principals are working, one of the elements that they are working on is the non-instructional periods. So just because you're a senior, you've finished all the, I'm done with all the, grad requirement. There's no need for me to come for more than 2-3 periods. So now we say you have dual enrollment. So jump on dual enrollment classes. So we are making it extremely difficult to provide any TA classes or library aid or any of those things. And even within 1 year, the number of, when I start pulling the number of non-instructional periods, that actually the parents have to sign a waiver for that in order to take it. But the seniors, however, they go and convince their parents and do that, right? So we are saying, no, that's not what you're going to do. You're going to go, if you're finished all the A through G, I want you to do dual enrollment, because at least you will get out of the school with 12 credits. So we are being very, very strict about that. And that is also a very important reason why we are improving our A through G. Students are in the classes now as a senior. Yeah, he wrote to me and I said, oh, I'm sorry, I can offer you this dual enrollment for you. Oh, I'm already A through G. That's what he said. That's okay.
Good. Just want to say thank you so much. Thank you for being here. Thank you for putting this together. It's a lot of great information and a lot of additional information that I'm sure, we'll take home and we'll continue to read. I really do appreciate that this slide on what boards can do. I think that I would support what Ms. Medina has shared, in addition to, so it would be the first and second one. So defining mastery and representation. I think that if we can, put some language, obviously, if we need to have it be collaborative, of course, but I think that alone, those two will really help improve a lot. And the other ones are also important, but I think those first two will help significantly. And then the other question that I had, kind of what Mr. Santos had asked, I know that this is only looking at 12th graders. And maybe the reason for it is because it's just so much resources that maybe we can't go lower. But when students are and I'm sure this, when students are in high school, sometimes students or parents make the mistake of thinking that, your grades for 9th and 10th grade don't really matter. But actually they're kind of like the most important ones, because once you do get left behind, it's really hard to catch back up. And when you do get to that 12th grade, oftentimes students at that point are already kind of checked out a little bit, and they want to just finish. They've been in school for, the entirety of their life, that it's kind of hard to get them to understand, like, no, this is still important. And which brings me to my next point. A little while ago, I don't know, 2, 3, 4 years ago now, we had started to have the conversation around changing the graduation requirements. And it was something that was briefly introduced.
Yeah.
And I know that there were some of my colleagues that were a little hesitant, and I understand the hesitation. But that's a conversation that I would like to kind of bring back, because that distinction, those different paths, when students become aware that there is a different path, who wants to do more work? It goes against our human nature, to say, yeah, I'm going to do, you have to be, out of this planet to say, yeah, give me more work. So, looking into possibly making those alignments so that there isn't so much of an option. Again, raising the bar, raising the expectation. I am confident that our students can meet the expectation.
Absolutely.
We need to be able to raise it. But in previous conversations, one of the hesitations from some of my colleagues were, there's a fear. And the fear factor needs to be acknowledged because it's a very real fear that if we raise the bar but we don't provide supports, then yes, a lot of students are going to fall through the cracks and they're going to get left behind. So we really need to be intentional about having that conversation. But I'm in big support of moving that expectation and raising the bar for students because they can meet it.
So I don't want to steal that thunder. That's the work Swiss is doing now with the counselors and building that system I talked about, like, the ninth grade. What about the ninth grade? What about the 10th grade? Why are we only catching? See, right now, we are riding the plane while putting out the fire. That's exactly what we are doing. So right now, 12th grade, there is an urgency. So we want to focus on that. But then we have to come back and start building that sustaining system. That's what they'll be talking about. And also last week, Swiss and our department, they went together. We started talking, to your point, we went to 8th grade schools and then we talked about all the A through G. How you have to be, every student should be very familiar with the A through G before they go into, so they know how serious it is, they have to take their grades. It's not that they can just get D's and F's and they can continue to move on. Somewhere the system just stops, right? So we are doing all those foundational pieces, but we are doing a two-prong approach, just putting out the fire and then at the same time, building system as we keep doing that.
So I'm going to jump in there and be the bad guy. It's time to transition. So first of all, board, just to get direction. Well, first of all, thank you. Amazing presentation. Thank you for the information. I believe it was very helpful for the board, and I think they understand where we are. So I want to get clarification. You do have a majority of the board here, and there was a request to look at the San Dieguito board policy. So is there direction to have the board policy subcommittee look at it and see if they want to make any changes to our current board policy?
So I'll seek for consensus.
Okay, then that is our direction. Thank you very much. Let's take maybe a 1 or 2 minute break so we can have transition of panelists, and then if anybody wants to grab some food or anything, we'll get started in 2 minutes. Thank you guys so much. Appreciate you very much. I'll give it to you. So, you have a mom. Okay, so she'll know. So she can manage. On the board policy committee, right?
Yes, I am.
So you'll know what items you want to. Okay, gracias. All right. Oh, okay, good. Okay, perfect. All right, perfect. Pauline, is there different? Is this different than the one we have, or is it the same one? Did you make changes? Okay. All right, we'll go with the one you had. Yeah. Okay, guys, 2 minutes is up. Let's do it. I'm cracking that whip, huh, Mary Ellen? I'm cracking that whip. Oh,
It sure looks good.
I know it is.
You know,
You want the other half?
no,
No,
it's,
good?
it's okay. You know, I get to go now.
Lucky.
Right? I'll let you know.
Okay. Okay, sounds good. Thanks, Scott. Good to see you. All right, let's reconvene. So we will now transition to the request of what the focus that the school district has in terms of school site counseling and the culture of college-going culture. So Colleen or Anna or Sandra, I mean,
Sandra. It's
take it away.
Sandra. It's Sandra.
Sandra.
So, pues no sé. Depends on the day, right? Whatever you want. He's the boss.
Hmm.
So the work that we do in student services is very important as we support the work of Ed Services. Ed Services is kind of the brain, and we work to support that work, and we have a common goal. And that goal is that students are successful. One of the roles that we have within student services in supporting students is the site counselor. And so today we're going to provide you with information about how we structure our counseling program and how we support students in that college-going mindset, to really just kind of get more in depth as far as what do the counselors do in order to improve A through G. It is a concerted effort that requires both departments to work together, because teachers teach the classes and give grades, and counselors assign the classes in order to get the students so that they are on track for A through G. So with all of that, we have our team today presenting. We have Colleen Williams, and we have our Assistant Director, Martina Beach Hedges, who have really been instrumental in this work. I'm very proud of the work that they do and the data that we collect, and we believe that the work that we do complements very well to these increases in A through G. So with that being said, I'll pass it over to our team. Colleen.
Good evening, everyone. Wonderful to be here with you for dinner time, right? Thank you for having us, and thank you for making this request. We're really excited to share with you all. You have a new packet that I handed out. Might be more up to date than the one that you were given previously, but not too many differences. So we're really excited to talk about counselors in general, but very specifically how they are helping create this college-going culture. And so we wanted to start with a little bit of groundwork in terms of what the role of a school counselor is as a whole. And so if we go to the next slide, David, thank you so much. Here's what we're going to cover today. We're going to talk a little bit about the alliance of our counseling program to the American School Counseling Association, ASCA, excuse me. And then we talk a lot about MTSS, and you've heard multi-tier system of support a lot. And it applies for the majority of the work that we do. For counselors, they have a special one called MTMDSS, and we'll talk about what that means. I will pass it to Martina, and she's going to talk about the very detailed work that she's doing with a very small team from Swiss, really focused on the work of improving the school counseling program across the district. The primary focus of her role is the assistant director in student wellness. And then we'll also end with how we align this work with the counselor evaluation. Okay. So a little bit of the ground of the ASCA program is looking at the balance of their work. They do spend the majority of their time with students and supporting students directly, but obviously it requires some planning. It requires some analysis of data to identify those students. I know Dr. Venkatesan talked about the data that's at the fingertips of either the principals, the counselors, the teachers, and what we do about that data. And so we have great systems coming online to really show off how that works. And this ASCA program is research-based, it's evidence-based, it's got 50 plus years behind it, and really the core elements of what counselors spend their time doing in 3 realms: the academic realm, the college and career, which, you know, academics and college and career go hand in hand, as we just heard, and then the social emotional supports as well. And so we really want to point out to you this diamond shape from ASCA, really around how we assess our own program and assess the needs of our students. Every campus of students is different and unique. Their needs are different and unique. So the way that the program allows them to assess based on the data of their own campus and address the needs very specifically of the culture of their school. Spending time delivering direct lessons and or interventions, defining what those programs should look like, and then managing all of those components. And the other piece that's new to them is really sharing the results of their program, which is new for them. A lot of counselors are behind the scenes, really like to support people and do great work from the heart. They don't always like to say, and hey, here's how fabulous I am. And here's what the benefits are to kids when I work with them. And so we're really pushing that part of the model too, because we want it to be known from the staff perspective, the student perspective, exactly what counselors do to support. So a little bit more detail in terms of the MTMDSS. You have what I think is a really great graphic to explain it to you. Just like we have the tiers in the social emotional support that you hear from me about, or the physical health supports, we do the same thing with the academics, the college and career, and then the SEL supports from the counselor. So this model works for all grade spans, whether you're talking about an elementary counselor, a middle school counselor, or a high school counselor. What they do in each of those realms is different based on the developmental levels of their students. We obviously heard from Dr. Venkatesan that our seniors, we're spending a lot of time talking about college and career. We're spending a lot of time talking about academics and those D's and F's and how do we do additional coursework to make those up, right? But that might be a different focus at the elementary school. We're talking about introducing the idea of college, introducing different careers that are available, maybe beyond the realm of the careers that students are used to being exposed to. And so it looks very different depending on those developmental levels. And the MD part of the MTMDSS is multi-domained, but still in that tiered model. So the academics, the college and career, the SEL across all 3 tiers. We wanted to provide you, and we know we're not doing a vision screening today, so we did give you a copy of this document, but we also will share the digital copy. All of these documents are linked for you so that you can access them at any time should you choose to, or want to dig into something. Everything is linked digitally, so you have digital copies. You do have a paper copy of this. We highlighted for you in the school counselor standards and competencies all of the places where it touches college and career and academics. So you can see throughout that document here, there are plenty of places where they are assigned to support students either with mindset or the beliefs and standards around college going and academics. Okay. To align to that work, we have spent some time here in San Bernardino City working with our counselors that are the frontline staff of doing this work, working with our small team in Swiss that supports school counselors, with Miss Beach Hedges, looking at what does the MTMDSS look like here in San Bernardino City. So what does it mean to support students' academic growth in Tier 1 for school-wide efforts? What could it look like in Tier 2 in small groups? And then what would it look to do intensive supports for students who have multiple classes, for example, that are D's and F's or failing, right? What would that look like? It looks very different than a student who's on track and doing well. And then you can see that we've also highlighted how they support the college and career. We have specific call outs for what high school counselors are responsible for as well. We focused a lot of the time and efforts on the college and career and academic areas specifically for high school because there's some intensive work there. I love Dr. Venkatesan saying that I've heard that the plane is flying and you're building the plane at the same time you're flying. I have never heard that the plane is flying and you're putting out a fire as well. So that scared me a little bit, but I get them. I got the analogy. And yes, ditto. So definitely that work that we're doing to support the students that are being impacted by those grades right this minute. And how do we also build a better future? So we're really excited to show that to you. Again, this document is linked. If you want to dig into it, you have access to it through that digital presentation. And then I actually have the pleasure of introducing you to Ms. Beach Hedges. She is our assistant director in Swiss, and she is responsible for digging in with our team and our K-12 counselors to really build a futuristic program of counseling. And so she's going to highlight some of the ins and outs of those details and how we're supporting principals with an understanding of what the responsibilities are for their counselors and how can we help provide data so that they can also help hold their counselors accountable and that balance between support and accountability. Ms. Beach Hedges.
Thank you, Mrs. Williams. So Colleen has talked about, first of all, it's a privilege to be with you, so thank you for that. And it's a privilege to work with counselors. We have 160 counselors in our district, K-12, who are working hard every day to make things right for our kids every day. So our job in Swiss is to provide support for all of those counselors. We do have counselors within our team that know what the job is, that understand the standards and the mindsets and behavior standards. So I am privileged to know that. So Colleen or Ms. Williams talked about the defining, like how do we define what the job is of a counselor? I'm going to go through the other pieces of what a counselor does and kind of so you can see it in a linear motion of what we do. So what we do to help manage a counseling program, we've been this is my 4th year in the district. We have been really trying to help counselors understand they have to build a comprehensive program so that it's equitable for all students. And that's within their school site, but throughout the district. So we've been working really hard trying to align it to ASCA and then trying to have them understand why we are doing the things that we're doing. Thankfully, Mr. Ariano helped with that by telling us the focuses that he wants. So we've been really pushing on what we need to do. These are documents. There's a slew of documents that ASCA provides to help build a program and to align it, and you can get rewarded for it if you go RAMP. We have 3 RAMP schools in our district. But, pardon? RAMP, yeah, and I'll talk about that just a little bit later, yeah. And these are schools that are just doing the hard work of doing the multiple documents and looking at goals and really digging in, having parent groups. So there's all these different pieces, and they're rewarded at ASCA every year for those schools. So, but for our program, and really to think about how we can build a program that helps students or counselors focus. These are 4 documents that we mandate that the counselors do the counseling programs at each of our schools. So the first one is the annual calendar, and you can just see them on here. But what the annual calendar does is help counselors go month by month on what they're going to be doing as a direct service and indirect service. Direct service being what they're actually going to be doing and providing for each student at their school, whether it be groups, whether it be DF notices and discussions,
whether it be A through G. So everything that they're going to do as a team at our high schools or our elementaries, it would be groups or individual discussions, kindness week, things like that. The indirect would be the job or work that the counselors do that would be behind the scenes to prepare for the things that they're going to do directly. And then in the third group is the work that they do or get assigned by their principal to support the school side as a whole. So they're part of the whole school team. The next group, the next document would be the classroom and group mindsets and behavior action plan. This is where they look at data and see what they need to do to support, look at the data to see what they need to do to provide either groups within the school day or individual meetings or planning with students aligned to the standards that we looked at before. So they look at their data and say, okay, well, we really think that we need to focus on this within our school site. They then create a plan to say when they're going to do that and how that aligns to, again, the school as a whole on what the principal has built.
So Martina, if you
Yeah.
can speak to what is a group and what data are they looking at? So for example, we look at, let's say we have lots of issues with girls fighting, arguing. We may have a friendship circle or a group for girls on how do we behave better based on the data that we see. So that might be an example of a group, right? And then we may have individual counselors or counseling sessions with students. Groups like dealing with grief, dealing with divorce, attendance, grades. So those are some of the examples of what group looks like
Yeah.
versus individual sessions.
Does that make sense? Yeah. And it can be along each of the domains that Ms. Williams talked about. So whether it's academic, social, emotional, or college and career. And so obviously it'll be different for each grade level. So elementary, middle, and high school. So the next document that I want to refer to is the annual student outcome goal. And so what we ask here is that counselors again look at the data that their principal and the principal's team as they build the SIPSA and what is the focus of the school. They then say, okay, what is my piece as a counselor? What is our piece of that goal that the principal has established and what we can do? And so this past year, so the year we're in, one of those was A through G, and that was A through G K-12. So it wasn't just high school A through G, it was K-12. And that was difficult for some of our counselors, particularly at the elementary, on what piece they can do. And so we had to guide them in how to do that. So they set 2 goals. They create a SMART goal, and then they go through the document and talk about what they're actually going to do. So what direct service that they're going to do, what indirect service that they have to do, and then how that's going to make an impact on their students and what percentage. So they work on that. We have all of these documents are turned into SWIS so that we review them. I have a team member who supports each of the counselor or counseling team, particularly at the high schools, and so we review these documents. We've been also helping or sharing with principals about these documents, and that's going to be a continued growth area to see when these documents are not completed and how we can support that and how we can get their support in completing this. Because we feel that this is a way that we can really make an impact on A through G. We can make an impact on the things that are happening in our schools, and so that no student is left behind or no student is not getting what they need as an individual. And then the final part, and I just wanted to say thank you, Dr. Venkatesan. We are working really hard with her team to kind of collaborate with her team to do some of these systems. At one of the meetings, the principals that she works with, particularly in the high school, were talking about that they want consistency with the counselors, and I'm hearing that. And so, interestingly enough, one of the documents is an annual administrative conference document where they're sharing the other 3 documents with their principal, so the principal knows exactly what the work that they're doing in their program each year. This is each year, and then sharing how they want to make an impact.
And so that's done at the very beginning of the year so that the principal is aware what their programs are doing. So when we have principals saying that they have no idea what their counselors are doing, then we look to this and like, okay, did you have your meeting? Like, hey, let me help you with this. And so then we're working with our points of contact from Swiss to say, hey, I have, Pakuma principals saying they didn't get to have a meeting. They don't know what their counselor's doing. Okay, let's pull up their document. Let's see. And then we kind of foster that collaboration with their principal. The next part of manage is we not only support, we provide professional development. I'm going to talk more about that as well. But this is a document that we created. Again, we do pull off counselors during MOU days to provide professional development. We start planning right now in the spring for the next year. But we share this out with the principal so they know exactly what professional development their counselors are getting, who is presenting that professional development, and then what resources we're providing for the counselors. So the principals are aware. And then the other part, we do share this with you, the board, every month that we do the professional development. We do 6 to 8, depending what year, but we provide that to you as well, so you're aware of what we're providing. We do plan it out for the year, but it is adjustable. Just to give an example, we were going through this year and again, looking at A through G, and particularly our high school counselors, and working with ETSA, they were really saying, hey, our counselors are not really understanding the transcript and understanding, wow, well, thanks. Get some music. That's right. All right. I mentioned it and it goes on. We work with ETSA on looking at how we can support, and they were talking about transcripts and really and they were sharing that they didn't find that counselors really knew how to look at the transcript and know what validated what class, and why wasn't some of our counselors understanding and putting in students in classes that already validated another class, like, so all of these things. And so again, our team pivoted and we said, okay, so in January, instead of doing what we had scheduled for last spring, we did a transcript review. And so we did it by level. So we grouped our counselors by new counselors, that they're 1 to 5 years. They went into one group. Our counselors that were 6 to 8 to 9 years, we grouped another, because they probably know how to read a transcript, but we dug a little deeper and talked about intervention and validation and all that. And then we had the head counselors and the 10 plus working on a document I'll talk to you about in just a bit. So we do pivot, trying to look at the needs of what the counselors need. Just sharing here, like I was saying, we do collaborate with secondary ed a lot, and they come and present for us on different things, college and career with us. PYD comes and helps us talking about bullying and other things that they provide to support counselors. It's specialized programs, family engagement, and then we have some resource partners that we have come in and provide resources for our counselors that can help our families. Okay. And so now I want to talk about moving into our delivery and what our counselors actually provide for our academic and college and career. And like Dr. Van Contesson said, that those sometimes kind of merge, they kind of overlap. So that's why it's like a perfect fit to work with her team on some of the things that we do to support counselors. So for this, we have the ARIES Academic Plan and College Career Success Plan. Through ARIES, our counselors are building out what our students should be doing for the 4 years that they're in school. So students and parents and family members should know right at the beginning what that plan looks like. So they should know if they pass their classes along the way, they will be set, right? A through G. They have A through G course completion discussions. I'm going to talk to you about the intervention menu. I'm going to show you what that looks like, that we've been building and working really hard this year on, because there wasn't a consistent or comprehensive intervention menu. And then I'm going to talk to you about the intervention calendar and what that looks like. And then, as I said, A through G is not just 9-12, it's K-12. And so our team has been working really hard with our K-8s with an ABC flow chart that looks at what they can be doing to intervene in elementary school and middle school. So that by the time they get to high school, it's not a question of, what do I have to do? It's like, I'm doing it and this is what I'm doing. So that's the thought behind that. And then just talking about the college mindset that we are really pushing our counselors to have, again, with the direct services, with the collaborating with our secondary ed about college applications, FAFSA, KEDA, and scholarships. We do all that work with them. We call it our shining team because we're really trying to push that. And then our counselors do our classroom presentations. And then the indirect services that they're doing for academics and college and careers, like the letter of recommendations that, a caseload for a high school counselor would be like 300 students. So they're doing those letters of recommendation and uploading those. They're doing student data uploads, which the colleges request. So they have to do all of those. They do the educational opportunity program uploads that they have to do. These are things and recommendations that some people don't think about, but that's part of their job, right, at each of those schools. And then our parent nights and trying to get our parents involved to understand what should be happening with their student and why they need to do the things that we're asking them to do. Yes, ma'am.
I feel that our counselors are very undersung heroes, really quietly, not, I don't know any noisy ones, I don't know. And on that point, I just feel rather than know is that I want to make sure that we're doing something for them to keep up their morale, their energy, their focus, their excitement about what they're doing, what they have. There's a student and there's his mind and there's a counselor in between there. And I think a counselor I would trust is more trained to see signs of stress or mental health issues, and absences, too many absences will hurt all those. So no matter how many sessions you have with a student, if you see they're not really listening, do we have people that are able to say what's going on with you? How can I help? And I trust that counselors are the ones that are, for whatever reason, are in those positions. And I worry about their workload. I don't know what it's like in these days in our school district. What's their caseload? I know it's sometimes really scary, those numbers, when you think of the amount of work that they have to do and their interaction with the actual student. So I just, these things come to my mind because this is a lot. Teachers, at least, we have each other and there's a lot of us. Even in the smallest schools, there's more than one or two. And counselors, how many do we have in a high school?
They vary, but depending on size, like our biggest size, our bigger high school, Cajon has 9,
Okay.
and down to 5, I believe. So at our
And how
small
many
school.
students there?
We have a max. It's part of our
So by
contract. Thank you.
Yeah, by contract, the counselor caseload is 375. 375
Yeah.
students.
Yeah, I used to have 10 students in my class. Yeah, so that's what I'm saying. It's just like, it's a lot. And, how often can they see them? So
I do also want to just add something. The information that you're getting about counseling is within the context of the college-going culture.
Right.
There's a lot of other things that counselors do, but very specifically, you asked for what are counselors doing around supporting academics and the mindsets around that college and career focus that we have in the district. So I just
Okay,
wanted to
that's
kind of
good.
make that clear because
Little
there's a
bit
lot of
more.
other things.
Yeah,
But
yeah.
but we were focusing on this area because we could talk for days, of course.
Yeah.
But we wanted to focus on how we're complementing the work of Ed Services
Okay.
around
Got it.
building a college-going climate and increasing measurables around A through G and college-going rate.
But I thank you, Dr. Rodriguez. I did want to say though, thank you for that about the being unsung, just because sometimes they feel that. We do try to support them. Like I said, in February we had National School Counselor Week, and we celebrated them and giving them burritos, and we had board members come out and support us. We do try to praise them and give them kudos for all the work they do. chocolate bars. That's what they need. Yeah. Um, they are doing great work, and it is a lot. Like Dr. Rodriguez said, it is a lot that they do outside of this. But I'm just trying to give you a broad stroke of what they're doing. So I appreciate that. And I just want to say thank you. Yeah, for the caseload, it's only set in high schools at 375. So our middle and elementary don't have a set caseload. So however many students are there is what they have, and we have 1 to 2 at the elementary or middle schools.
And I also think it's important, a lot of parents, and I know a lot of students themselves, I was one of those students that thought counselors just worked on the emotional, social emotional side. Never did I think a counselor ever helped academically.
Yeah.
And so a lot of parents and even students themselves need to know, no, they're there to also help you in the academics portion, make sure that you're taking the right classes, making sure that you're also applying for college. There's a lot more. And I know when my children were in school, I've always had, how do we make sure all of our students are connected in the academic part? And I'd like to also, I'm sure that you're going to talk more about it, what it looks like now compared to maybe 10 years ago, and the impacts that you're trying to create, because there was still a lot of students that are being placed in the wrong classes. They're not the A through G type of classes. The expectation wasn't there from, the guidance to making sure that they were in the right, hitting the right direction. And sometimes even counselors were saying, well, you know what, you don't have to go to a 4-year college. You can go to a 2-year college, which is fine. But at the end, let the students decide, provide that versus the counselor saying. But this was, again, several years ago. So now I'm wondering what that might look like.
Mm-hmm. Yes, thank you for that. And I just kind of want to speak to that just a little bit, because we're going in a kind of a little different direction, but I want to speak to that. Doing this work with Dr. Benkentussen and her team, we are changing the mindset, because there is, and I'm not going to lie to you, there are counselors that have still that mindset of, well, it's okay, like, you just want to go do this. But we're that's not how we talk to them. That's not what we expect from them. We're sharing what we expect from them. And is it pushing some of our counselors? Absolutely. But we're giving them expectations now that they need to meet. And as she was talking about the non-negotiables, we too are coming up with non-negotiables. Like those 4 documents, non-negotiables. Coming up with goals to support what the district is doing, non-negotiable. So I appreciate that thought and looking through that, because we are trying to push that. So I do want to talk about more deliver and just kind of speaking to particularly the A through G interventions, because that was part of our ask this year to push that. Like I said, Mr. Arno was saying that we need high school counselors to understand A through G and make sure that our students not are only in those A through G classes, but what are we doing when they're failing those A through G classes? We don't have anything to do with the grades, right? They have the grades as shared, that the teachers have that. But our piece of it, because we get pushback, like I was just saying, from the counselors, like, well, what are we doing about grades? I'm like, that's not your piece. Your piece is what do they do when they do fail that class? What is your piece of that? And so we did not have consistency as we looked at our system. We did not have consistency in what each of the high schools or what our high schools were doing as a program in our district. And so our team had the counselors, and that's what this first document is, the intervention menu. We had the counselors, okay, what do you do in 9 through 12 when a student fails? What do you do when a student is failing at the 6th week? What do you do at the 12 week? So we started asking these questions, and we had asked them to provide those interventions. And what we got was like, it was a lot. Like it was just all over the place. So like, okay, we have to kind of restructure. This needs to be consistent at every school. When the board is saying to us, what are our high school counselors doing when we have 20 students getting Fs in all their classes? We have to have an answer. So what we did is, again, we worked with secondary ed, Dr. Benkentussen and her team, and said, okay, can we get counselors, head counselors? We have all these different interventions that we're doing by grade level, because they shared what they were doing by grade level and what tier they were. So what do you do for tier 1, tier 2, tier 3? So we got our head counselors together with our principals, and we said, okay, these are your mindsets and behaviors, which Ms. Williams talked about. What is it that you do at your school? And then where's a growth opportunity? You're like, oh, I wish we did this at our school. Oh my gosh, we don't do this. This would be great. So we had them grade themselves and tell us what is it that they do and what is a growth opportunity. And that was a great day at ALI, because then my team, and that's the second page, took that and they created this intervention analysis. And it shows, again, it's linked. You can just kind of see it on there. It shows the tier that it was, and then it talks about what is currently in practice by which school, and then what growth opportunity there is for each school that wants to grow in the area that is not happening at their school currently. So this helped us understand, okay, so if this is what you say that we're currently doing, and that these are the practices, because at first they were pushed back saying, okay, we're doing great. And I'm like, no, 49% is not great. When our goal in a short-term goal is 70% and you're at 49. So obviously we're not doing something. So when we're looking at this, we're like, okay, so this is what you're all agreeing to do at each of your schools so that we can have consistency, coherence. They said yes. So we took that to create an intervention calendar for 9/12. And then the growth opportunities we're going to be doing as part of PD, either workshops or during our PD, depending on how many schools, high schools wanted it, to provide that for them so that they all have all the skills that they say that they wanted. So as we go to the next page, and there's a hand, I gave you the handout, and I just provided the 9th grade just so that you can kind of see.
I'm sorry. I'm sorry to interrupt you
Yes.
mid-sentence. Are you going into examples of what some of those interventions are? Or is it
If you go to this page, it's the page before.
this one? Right?
Yes. So this is what I'm going to share with you. So what we then did from there is ask the head counselors for the high school to then sit together and agree upon what they're going to do. And you can see it's by month of the A through G practice. So we took the practices that they said that they will do as a comprehensive district, and what they will be doing each month. We're still working on this a little bit. What tier it meets, and then how they're going to do it, whether it's by student or by group, and then when it's going to happen, and the data that we're going to follow and follow up with. So let's just say in September, we have a PD. We're going to be doing data chats, and we're going to be talking about like, okay, you said in July and August in 9th grade that you were going to talk about schedule adjustments and for A through G readiness. So how many students, and we can garner that through the Aries academic plan, how many of our 9th grade students have an academic plan that sets them up A through G readiness, that all their classes are A through G.
Sorry, when did
Yep.
this start?
We haven't started it.
Oh, okay.
Because we're just gathering the data this year. Again, going back to flying the plane and trying to put out the fires. There was no consistent plan. Oh, I'm sorry. I'm trying to align with Dr. Van Contestant. I'm gonna have to pay her. Okay. But it's finding that we did not have consistency, and so that's what we're trying to do now. So this is that part of it. Yes, please interrupt.
I just wanted to add something, Ms. Ceballos. So that example that Ms. Beach Hedges talked about. So if the people that are assigned to 9th grade students in July and August, they're responsible for meeting with each student and creating that A to G plan, that college and career plan, then we can check that data in September to see if that's actually happening. So this is garnering commitment from our counselors of what they're going to do month by month in the A to G realm, and then being able to pull that data utilizing those components. And then you can see in September, this is when the first poor work notice comes out. And so they can look at the students who are at risk of that A to G plan that they just wrote not being successful, and they can intervene before a course posts to a D or an F at the end of the semester. And really, ninth grade, especially my child who graduated from the district, ninth grade was that transitional moment for him that was very difficult. And I think you all said it during Dr. Venkatesan's presentation of they don't realize that ninth grade matters, right? And so if you have a problem in ninth grade, how do you intervene the first moment that you know there's a problem before it posts to their transcript and then we have a makeup situation?
So ladies, we have about 15 minutes left to go through our presentation. So we want to be concise with the information.
Well, thank you. Okay, so does this understand? So this ensures equitable across our district for all of our students. It provides guidance for our counselors, again, for those that might be, less in understanding of what they should be doing. And then it fosters an accountability for our counselors, not only with us, because with us supporting and providing PD, but with their administrator. I'm just going to quickly go over this part, just because this is where we're doing with our, because like I said, A through G is not just high school. This is what we're doing with our elementary and middle school, providing intervention too, because again, as we were talking about earlier with secondary ed, about that grades didn't matter in middle school, we're making sure that they matter. And I have to just say our counselors are very excited, our middle and elementary, that they are actually getting a piece of this, because before there was no really a lot of talk about that. And so they're actually excited. So they too are participating in this work to ensure that it is a whole district counseling program and comprehensive. So I'm going to kind of skip through this since the college going mindset, this is, I just want to share again, we're working with secondary ed and our Shining team to provide workshops. And this was our first one this year that we did this, where we had all of our counselors, we had partners that come in, they have the new information about scholarships, about applications. So we had all of them, all the counselors there. We had both of our teams there. Just supporting it, and it's just really kicking off the college focus. This is going to be an annual event for us. And then we're then working with, this is how we're providing information for our counselors who are supposed to be providing it for our students and our families. And now we've pulled in family engagement, that we're going to set up workshops for our families from the district to do it, post those so that they have a way to have that knowledge, and then also our counselors have a way what they should be presenting to the families at their schools. And so there's never going to be a lack of information for our families. This is where we then go into the assessing our programs and how we see kind of what Mrs. Williams was talking about, to see how are we meeting the what we say we're going to do. And so I know that Dr. Venkatesan talked about Unified Insights, our CCGI, Aries Academic Plan, and then Panorama data. And those are the platforms that we use. And then data monitoring currently, but we're going to be adjusting it as these things come in when we build out these plans for 9-12. But currently we're looking at the Aries Academic Plan, A through G completion for all grades. I know that you had asked about that earlier, I think, Ms. Ceballos. And then the intervention application and then DF grades. So to quickly just kind of hit on it, part of the problem also was not just the consistency across all counselors in our district, but it was really how do you look at data and what do you do with that data? And our counselors were lacking in that. As we were trying to share with them, like how they can be pulling their own data. So our team has been working with AET through Unified Insights to set up tools for them to quickly get to that information so they can use that information to pull students that they need to meet with. And so this is like an hour-and-a-half training that my team does. That we just did it with the MTSS TOSAs as well. Again, that collaborative support with secondary ed, just to make sure that we're looking at the same data, that we're not pulling, that each team isn't pulling the student in different ways, that we're collaborating and working together, looking at the same data, and then what interventions do we provide. So we are working with CCRTs at the high schools, with our MTSS TOSAs and counselors, and making that, we're hoping could be a possible PLC to look at the data together through Unified Insights. And here we look at the risk analysis of not graduating and not being A through G compliant. And so this just shows you that in Unified Insights, the data that's provided is the graduation probability. We teach counselors how to utilize this to look at their students. And I know Dr. Van Contessa is looking at her different things that she was looking at, their grades. We look at those two in color coding on students who are at high risk or moderate risk or low risk of graduation and why. And so if you look at these different color codes, the red just tells you who are at high risk. It tells you the students in the little numbers in the little sentence who are at high risk this week. So by week that you can know which students are not going, that are at risk of not graduating. And so on this example, it showed 128. And then on the top left-hand corner where it said 11, that's students that moved from moderate risk to high risk. And so it's, like I said, it's by week they can see what students they need to focus on immediately. It's live. Yeah, it's overnight. Like they get the information overnight, yes. So they have access to this. Again, it was teaching the counselors how to look at this and how to use this data, because that was not something that they were used to doing. And then we were teaching them again, helping them understand that they should be looking at students that are not A through G. And so this is similar to the data that Dr. Van Contessa shared, that you can look at students that are, number of students that are enrolled in the school, number of students that are on track, A through G on track, and then the percentage of that rates. Then looking at how many are off track by one subject, off track by two subjects, again live, and who are off by three subjects. If you click on the number, it then tells you who the students are. And so again, immediately at their fingertips, they can know which students they need to set up meetings with.
Quick question. How does it happen live? Because teachers don't post grades until the end of the semester. So how does that happen?
There are some that are posting right away, so that if the minute, like if you saw on that previous one where it had the red, those 11 that moved over within the week. So if a teacher posted grades and it moved them into a D.
So it's coming from Aries. It's
coming from Aries, yes.
Okay.
Unified
So
Aries site,
do teachers have like a expectation of, when they're supposed to be upgrading? Yeah. Like
So that's not our realm. That's an ed services conversation.
But the only reason why I ask this is because this is as useful as they, upload, right? So, just making sure that that is aligned.
Thank you. So the other part of the training is the use of our California College Guidance Initiative, CCGI. And this is, again, the collaborative work with our CCRTs. Last year, we worked with a secondary ed team, our Shining team, to look at where the work overlaps, because a lot of the time, some people were saying this is counselor work, and a lot of times it was our CCRTs. So teams were working differently at different high schools. And so we were really trying to, again, be consistent and cohesive in what do we need to do. So we created what is the work of the counselor, what is the work of the CCRT, and so that team is working now collaboratively on the high schools to ensure that students are, through CCGI, are doing applications, that they're doing their scholarships, that they're doing the FAFSA and the CADA. So the teams are working collaboratively to ensure that's happening. It's the platform where we have access to it as educators at the district level. The parents can see what's happening. So if their students are not A through G, if their students are not submitting their applications, all this, every aspect of our community can see this if they have access.
And I'm sorry, what's
Yep.
the CCRT?
College and career resource teacher,
Oh,
readiness teacher. Sorry.
okay.
Or which sometimes we refer to as a college counselor, the one who helps you in that college going process.
It's a little different.
Yeah.
It's a teacher.
Right. But just, I know, which kind of, you triggered something there for me. Because I get we have K through 12 counselors, right?
Yeah.
But it sounds like we have two different teams and two different departments rather than having like the high school counselors and the CCRTs together in one department working together. So I don't know. It sounds like a bit of a bureaucracy, but that's my first question. Maybe not for this moment, but it sounds like it either should be together or not separate. But my other thing is because I also have a heart out. I have somewhere to be. You know, I think counselors are important. I really do. I've had really good experience at the high school and really bad experience, right? My boys counselors have all been excellent. They've had two, so all. And then, you know, I always like to tell the story of my niece who walked into her counselor, said, I don't want to do math anymore. And the counselor said, okay. Right? Which is an issue, right? Because I believe this is my philosophy. A counselor should encourage, should push, should motivate, right? I understand the social emotional. Maybe I'm a little on the other side of it, but it's important. But we have to build some grit in the kids, and sometimes we have to push. There's a moment where I get it. You know what? This kid, we're not going to get A through G out of them. I do believe there is a point where that is true, but I also believe that, you know, counselors should push. And I love, because I knew that you're getting them because the systems exist. The data, I think, to take word from you, we're data rich, right? The data exists, right? It's not when I started back then that you get a sheet and you start filling out A through G's, right? And you start coloring. All right, you got this one. They can at a touch of a button.
In pencil, yeah.
Get it erased.
Yeah.
So I'm glad that we're doing that with our counselors and then encouraging them to encourage our students, right? Changing that mindset. And I've never believed, you know, I'll use the college one because, you know, as my son is a pre-med major, I said, you're going to run into a counselor. You're not going to do well in one of your classes. It's just going to happen. And a horrible college counselor or at that level would be, you know what, maybe pre-med isn't for you. Rather than saying, hey, if this is really what you want, you need to work harder and here's some resources that you need. You're going to have to go to tutoring. You're going to have to go to this. You have to do a little less of the extracurriculars and focus on that. That is what my philosophy is of a counselor. Now, if we're going into junior year, you can't just pass bio and chem. Yeah, maybe med school isn't going to be for you, but right at the beginning of failing one or two classes, there should be some encouragement and, hey, there's other issues. And that's the same thing for me for a high school counselor. There should be some encouragement of, you can do this, you're not focusing, we need you to get to focus, right? Which I think she's heard me way too many times, but that's just my thing. So I love that we're doing what we're doing. So thank you.
And I know that we're kind of pressed for time and we have a few more slides, but maybe just to kind of sum it up, the work of the counselor is one of support. They do not issue grades. They offer support in providing resources for students, as well as resources to the principal in order to kind of build that college going climate within the schools. There are a lot of things that we do that we have found gaps over time that we are working on to fix. We are data rich, but this type of data is new. They hadn't had these dashboards before. And so to be able now to click and say, I know they need these 3 classes, that was not done before. And so now it's all done electronically. The risk analysis, that is new again this year. So we appreciate probably more than any year prior, the work in collaboration with Ed Services, specifically with secondary ed, is something that we are working very hard to continue because we know that together we can accomplish and meet the goals of A through G. Again, this is one facet of what the counselors do. There's so much that they do and can do, but again, we also have to respect that instructional time is sacred. We can't just pull kids in. So there is a sweet spot to be found, and we will continue to focus on academics as well as social emotional. We have focused on that due to the pandemic and the needs and the trauma. Over the last few years, there was a lot of push for wellness centers, and so we met that. This year, our focus is to continue the work on wellness centers, but the focus is academics. We want to get kids to go to college. We want them to be successful and graduate from college and to build the skills that they need in order to persevere. So I want to thank our team for the work that they have done so far and the work that we do with secondary ed, because it's meaningful, it's important, it's imperative that we work together in order to get success. So thank you, ladies, for the presentation, and we'll pass it for questions and superintendent.
Can I build on that
Yeah.
statement and we'll turn it over for questions? So, Mr. Santos, I know this was something that you had asked for us, information, and I know your objective. So I want to let you know that the work that we started this year was with the intention of having high expectation for kids, because we did recognize that we were allowing kids to just opt out. It's the pobrecito effect, right? Like, oh, pobrecito, kid can't do it, so we're just gonna get them squeaked through. But then, or we were too focused on the SEL work because we were dealing with trauma in the moment, but not recognizing that if we don't prepare them for life after high, we're preparing them for trauma that's yet to come. And so a lot of the systems that we're putting in this year are intended to make sure that there's high expectation, that we have access to easy data, quick data, because we don't want to be data rich but analysis poor. So the systems that they put together help us to be analysis rich as well, and we're working on it. This is the first year on that. The other piece is making sure that kids know their 4-year plans and that counselors know each kid's 4-year plan, and that we're case monitoring. You heard that term today, that we truly are, for the first time, case monitoring kids throughout the 4-year, because what we don't want is adding the unnecessary stress of waiting till the kids in the second semester of the senior year and suddenly say, you got to make 25 units up. When we could have reached out to them in sophomore year, junior year, and intervene at a pace that's a little more doable. So I know that's another one of our goals. The other piece I want to remind you, and then I'll turn it over to President Ceballos, is this isn't just the counselor's responsibility. So we, Marlene Bacandova, Colleen, Ed Services, we're doing a lot of work with the principals and system principals, because we're saying it is your responsibility too to know your students on your campus, and your job is to monitor, because what gets monitored gets done. But also you have to understand, if counselors are struggling because maybe the load is too big, whatever, then the principal needs to know that so that we can ask for centralized resources that we can push out. So this is the first year of trying to address, I think, many of the elements that you are pushing appropriately, is that we have high expectations, no opt-out. We continue to support kids and make sure that we're trying to get them at the highest level of graduation and not opting out to something less, but also having the systems uniformly across the district, access to data, access to analyzing, and making sure that our principals are equally responsible for it as not just a counselor. So I just wanted to add that piece.
And if I can add, I see that and I heard it. I'm not the wordsmith that he is, but thank you. No, I do see it, and I did hear this is the first year we're doing that and growing. So I do appreciate that, and I do appreciate all the hard work. I know I'm a little, but I
It makes
really
us
do
better.
appreciate that, and really want, because I don't know how to tell you. Look, I'm a kid who struggled academically and made it through college somehow, and I understand the value of a college education. And again, I know everyone isn't going to go there, but my success in life, whatever that looks like, is because at some point someone believed in me, or a lot of someone's, a little push here, a little push there, a little push here. And I really believe in our students that could do that.
I agree.
Yes, thank you. I do recognize the value of the work that you're doing right now, but I also I mean, you're doing both aspects of a much needed work. One is the social emotional, one is the academics. And I'm wondering, how are our counselors able to balance that, knowing the fact that they are working with 375 students? So that in itself is a large workload for them to try to, help change the systems and provide the social emotional and the academics. So how are we helping them work through that? Because we don't want them to succeed in one area and all of a sudden they kind of fall through another area.
So social emotional support looks different at every level. And we're very fortunate that Ed Services understands the need around social emotional learning, because it's not just how are you feeling, it is goal setting. It is how do you interact with other students? How do you control your behavior? And so many of the systems around social emotional learning have been embedded in some of the instructional strategies that happen in classrooms that Ed Services also pushes. Now, in elementary school, we monitor bullying lessons, we monitor social emotional learning lessons, and those are given by the teacher. So our counselors at the elementary help to monitor to make sure that gets done and add additional supports. We have a curriculum for social emotional learning for K-12, and so that's how we work on that. Now, while the caseload is 375, not every counselor, we're in declining enrollment, and so we do have counselors that don't have that kind of max. In addition to that, we have ETSA counselors. We also have multilingual counselors that helps to decrease the number of that caseload. So they're not operating at 375, in all honesty. And so while we love the support around giving them what they need, right now it is about defining what it is they're supposed to do. How does it complement instructional practices and help them to make academic increases? But it's also about the accountability. We didn't get to that, but the accountability around what are counselors supposed to do, and that's in the evaluation process. And so as we're looking at data, and I think I've shown a couple of you this with our dashboards, that we're able to monitor the work of the counselor. How many ARIES career success plans are done? How many bullying lessons are done? How many referrals did you make to an outside agency for therapy and support? How many times did your point of contact come to your school to support that school? We're able to monitor that. We hadn't been able to do that before. And so now this year is the year of data accountability so that we can see where there are gaps. But the gaps are in the implementation of the expectations around what is expected of them in their evaluation.
Okay, no, thank you so much. I appreciate that. And I'm glad to hear that there's additional supports and that kind of releases some of the workload. One more before I hand it over to Ms. Ceballos is regarding the IEP. So, and I'm not referring to that, counselors should know that, but I know that with, as the case with my son that had IEP, I know that they were really capable of certain areas. And so I think the automatic assumption is, well, they have an IEP, they don't need to be taking A through G classes. I know that I had to advocate to make sure as a parent back then. This was then I would say maybe about 10 years ago. And so now they're in software. But my thing is, as a parent, we had to advocate sometimes in looking at, wait, these are not the A through Gs, because I learned it through our parent training here in the district that A through G, we need to make sure our students were A through G. But I'm trying to also make sure that when we're looking with those with IEPs, that they're also, our counselors believe that they're capable of as well. But it seems like they are doing that. So
Yeah, and I do want
to
to add, most of our high schools, I think all of our high schools have a counselor that is the special ed liaison between the counseling team and the special education department at the sites. Our special education students who are learning handicap that are in the mild category, RSP students, are enrolled in A through G coursework. We do have students who are in the mod severe programs who have a different curriculum in our mod severe, such as like at San Bernardino High School. I think Sanji and Cajon each have those. They have a different curriculum. And then we have some of our self-contained SDC classes that are on the track to becoming A through G as they build the foundational skills. But our goal is as many kids as possible. As a former special education teacher, it is important to all of us that every kid has the opportunity to make that choice. Our job is not to determine that choice. Our job is to get them to the point where they can make the decision on what they want to do. But we've done our job to prepare them for that, to just say yes, open the door in which, you could make that choice.
Thank you so much. I want to just say thank you so much for all of this information. And I do have a lot of questions, but I think I'll just kind of stick around and ask you, a little bit more on the side so that we can go ahead and close the meeting because 2 of our members have left us. We no longer have quorum. With smiles on their face. Yeah, they had to leave. So just, thank you so much. Thank you for hanging back. And I will stick around because I do have a couple questions, but like I said, I just want to formally close the meeting, the workshop meeting. So adjourned.